Well, howdy there, guys. Welcome back. This is your host, ID Jester. We're looking at a brief tutorial of the coin system here, and in this episode, we're going to talk about card play, the sequence of play matrix, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about the special operations and special activities and show you how all that usually works together. So, of course, we're in the module Cuba Libre, and each coin game is slightly different in how they do things. So not everything I say might apply to the game that's in the series, but I'm talking in general terms, so most of it should apply to most of the coin games. There are some that are really a little bit different than some of the others, but for the most part, we're talking in general terms to kind of give you a good understanding of the basic concepts that are going to be altered by each different game in the series. So let's look at cards and the sequence of play. So in each of the different coin games, you're going to set up the card deck slightly differently. You're usually going to separate the cards into 4 or 6 stacks, and then you're going to shuffle some special scoring cards, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, into each one of those stacks, and then you're going to stack them up one on top of one another. So you're going to have a deck of cards, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take the top card, if I can do this. Now, I have enlarged the cards here, that's why they look so big, just to make it a little easier for you guys to see on them. So we want to just grab one of these cards and slide it over, and we're going to flip it up. So this is going to be the active card, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take the next card, if I can grab it, and flip it up, and then you're just going to put it back on top of the deck, and this is going to be the next card. So this is the active card, and then this is going to be the next card. So both players will have a chance to see what's going to happen this turn and what's going to happen in the next turn, or have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. So let's look at each of these cards here. And can I actually, yes, I can actually mouse over this and just bring it up so it's nice and big on your screen. So at the very top, you're going to see the 4 different faction icons. And these icons are very important, and you read them from left to right. And in this case, the green faction is going to get first shot, then the yellow faction, then the blue faction, then the red faction. And each one of these cards is going to be different. You can see the next one, the green player gets to go first, then the blue player, then the yellow player, then the red player, etc., etc. So when you're looking at the active card, the first player that's going to get to decide what they want to do is going to be the green player, then the yellow player, then the blue player, and then the red player. Most cards, but not all cards, and not all cards in the coin game system have this, but most cards have 2 different events on them. So in the middle, you usually get some kind of a picture or drawing. You'll get the name of the card, and this card is Sinatra. You also have the number of the card, number 46, up in the top right-hand corner. And then you'll have an unshaded event, and then you'll have a shaded event. Usually, the unshaded event is good for the coin players, and the shaded ones are good for the insurgency factions. But as a faction, if you want to play the event, you can actually play either one. Most of the time, one event is going to be good for your side and one event is not. So you're not going to really have like 2 chances at it. Normally, if you're the green player, in this case, the syndicate, the event usually is going to be the shaded one. You can play either one. If it only has one event on there, then you can only obviously choose to play the event or not. So let's look at the matrix here, because this goes into what players can or cannot do. So In fact, what I'm going to do is just slide this right down here for ease of use. There we go. All right. So that should be pretty good for us. So, the game is started. We have the setup. We're ready to go. We have all of our pieces and the different boxes that need to go. And by the way, I should mention, most of the coin games, again, have the actual cube information in the different areas, so it eases setup really easily. You can see here in Kamigui that they start with 1 troop and 2 police, which is what they have. Down here in Serra Madre, they have 2 insurgents and a base. Down here in Santa de Cuba, they have 2 troops, 2 police, and 1 in guerrilla. So it's usually pretty easy to set up a game. Just follow the little cube symbols, and you should be able to set it up pretty quickly and easily, which is super good. All right, so let's go on to the sequence of play now. All right, so we can see the green player gets to decide what they want to do. Now, the green player has 1 of 4 things he can do. All right, he can choose to go to this space here and do what it says. He can choose to go to this space and do what it says. He can choose to go to this space and do what he says. Or he can pass. If he doesn't like any 3 of these options, he can pass. And then it would go to the next player. All right. So in most cases, what you do is you look at the card, you look at the active player, and you look at the event. And in this case, it says, place an open casino in Havana, regardless of stacking. Place 1 cash with police there. All right. So remember, the green player, if we remember from looking at the victory conditions, the green player is the syndicate. Syndicate wants to have 7 casinos open and more than 30 resources. So the fact that they can open a casino in Havana, really, really good for them. So in this case, the green player more than likely would play the event. And I find that to be true about 60 to 70% of the time. Whoever the first player is, the event usually, whether it's a coin player or the insurgents player, whoever the first player is, usually has a pretty good event. And I would say about, depending on the game system, maybe 50 to 60, maybe even 70% of the time, they would take the event. So if the green player takes the event, right, he limits what the next player can do for the operation of this card. Now, one of the most important things is, even though all 4 players are listed on this card, only 2 players maximum will ever get to do anything during a card play. So if the green player does something, then if the yellow player does something, then that card is done and over with, and we go to the next card. So you're only ever going to have maximum of 2 players. Now, sometimes you might have 0 if everyone passes, which is going to be really rare. And sometimes you might only have 1 player play because all the other players don't like the second option. So, as I mentioned, the green player in this matrix can do 1 of 4 things. He can either go to this area and do what it says. He can go to this area and do what it says. He can go to this area and do what it says, or he can pass. If he passes, then the yellow player can go either here, or here, or here, or he can pass. And it goes and goes and goes until at least 2 players activate or do something on this sequence of play. If green and yellow both pass, then blue can play here, then red can pass, or he can either go here. So being first is good in the sense that, number one, you get the most options of what you can do. And the second thing is it limits what your opponent can do. So if the green player goes ahead and goes here, the only thing the yellow player can do is either pass or go here. As you can see, there's a little arrow here. So if the first player goes here, then the only thing the second player can do is go there. Same thing with all the other boxes. If the green player goes here, then the next player can only go to that spot or pass. Let's say yellow decides to pass, then it would go to blue. Blue can either go here or pass. That would leave it to red. Red can either go here or pass. So by going first, if you're the first player, you can kind of dictate what your opponents can do because they can only follow you or pass. That's their only option. All right, so let's put these back. The other thing to consider is if you are the first or second or third player or fourth player when you want to do something is, actually let's keep this down here and we'll just slide this top card down here. Now remember, so this is the active card and this is the next card. So we know that this card is going to come up. So for the green player, if he doesn't activate or he doesn't do something on this card, he's going to automatically get to go first again because his card is first, or his token is first. The yellow player, so let's see if we can show you this here. So the green player decides to take the event. I'm actually going to slide these guys over just a little bit so you can see that. All right, there we go. So the green player decides to take the event. He plays the event. He does what the event does. So that leaves it up to the yellow player. So the yellow player can either pass, or he can go here, or he looks at the next card and sees where am I going to possibly go on the next card? Is yellow first? Is yellow second? Is yellow third? So the yellow player, oops, let's flip that over, kind of knows, well, he's going to be second player in this card. All right, so if he does his thing, then this card is over with. And then once the card is done, and I guess I should finish this sequence before we talk about this. Once that sequence is done and two players have done something, then those players become ineligible for the next card. So the only factions that will get to go on the next card will be red and blue. So if we start back all the way at the beginning, right? Flip over, thank you. Green knows, well, I can play this event. If I don't play the event and I pass, you stay eligible for the next card. So he will also be first. Maybe he wants to play this event instead. But if he plays this event, right? If he decides to play this event, or if he decides to take an action, or if he decides to take an operation, then he's not going to be eligible for this card. He will be ineligible for the next card. He will go into that. So all the other players have to realize and think the same structure of what's going on here. So green says, well, in this case, green is really lucky because he's got like first in this card and first in that card, which hardly ever happens, right? So if green was actually down here where red was, if green passes on the active card, he knows he's not going to get many good choices on the next card. So passing would kind of be silly. It wouldn't make sense because you're not going to get many good choices on the second card. But in this case, green has got both of them. So he can look at both events and decide, well, I could play this one or I could play this one. Because no matter what he does, if he just passes, right, he'll get to be first player on this card. The only way he will not be first player in this card is if he becomes inactive for the next card, which means he did something on the active card. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So let's talk about the little matrix here and talk about what you can do. So again, you can pass. Passing is gets you a little bit of resources, as you can see, and it leaves you eligible for the next card, right? So maybe what we want to do is let's bring in a little bit of a different card here that might make things a little more interesting. There we go. Let's set this one back on the deck. So let's say this was the next card being played. Okay, so we'll bring that one down because it makes a little bit more sense. All right. So this will be the setup now. So we have this card, active card. This is the one we're playing. This is the one on top of the deck. This will be next card. So as the green player, right, if we were to pass, again, we can go anywhere we want because we're first player. We get first choice. If we pass this card and we look at this card, we say to ourselves, what is going to happen if we pass, right? If we pass, are we going to be able to get to play this event, or are we going to get a better option next time than what we currently have? And in this case, he will be second, which means more than likely, if green passes, yellow's going to do something, and then blue's going to do something, and then what's going to end up happening is they're going to go over here, green's going to become active for this card, and red's going to get to play the event, and then green will only get to play in this spot right here. Hopefully I'm not making this more complex than it really is. It's kind of the heart and soul, so I wanted to cover it really well and kind of the strategies behind it and the thought process that should be going through your head. If I'm the green player and this is the setup, I'm thinking, okay, I get first choice. If I don't want to play the event, I should probably do something because I'm not going to have as good a chance next time. Because again, let's say green passes, and then yellow does something, and then blue does something. They're going to go inactive, right, for this card. Now this is the active card, so red will be available and green will be available. But if red decides to do something, then that limits what green can do again all of a sudden, right? He can either go here or he's going to pass again. So his choices are limited based upon what's going to happen. So in more than likely in this situation, green is going to see this and say, I've got the best chance to do something. I should do something now, because next time I'm not going to get quite as good a chance. So he will more than likely do something. So let's look at what he can do. So again, you can pass, you can get a little bit of resources. If you don't pass, then you're going to choose one of these three boxes, and each one of them will let you do something else. If you want to play the event, whether it's the shaded or unshaded event, you're going to choose this box right here, and that is event. So you're going to do what the event does. You're going to, accomplish, just follow the text and do it, and you're done. You don't get to do anything else. You just get to play the event. That's it. Boom, done. Then we go to the next player. So then we go through the next player's thought process. Again, next player can either pass or he can go here. He doesn't have any other choice. He can't go up here, he can't go up here, he can't go up here, he can't go up here. He can only go here or pass. So yellow's thought process should be, if I pass, I'll become available for this card. Green's already activated. Now, if red activates, then he would be first on the next card, which would be really good, being first again, because then you get first choice of everything. But is red going to activate on this card is the question. So yellow player's got to think to himself, all right, green's already done that. Blue will be up next. So what will blue do? Will blue go here and do this option, or will he pass? If blue does this, right, then what's going to happen on this card is red's going to get first choice and yellow's going to get second choice. Well, yellow already has second choice on this card, so he's not going to make out on the deal. So more than likely, again, 95% chance, in this case, yellow player should take over this because he's not going to get a better chance on this card. He'll be probably more than likely second player on this card. He's already second player on this card. And will he get as good an option next time? Well, that's to be determined. So, to understand these different options, you have to actually look at this matrix. And I know I've said this several times, but we're going to actually look at these now and see what you can do. So, because some of these are more powerful than others, and you can, like I said, the first player can limit what the second player can do based on where his little pawn goes. So, as we talked about, first player goes here, he plays the event, he's done. The second player can only do this box or pass again. So what does this box do? This box lets you play an operation and add a special activity. Now, we haven't talked about this, but you've probably seen it as we popped up this chart many, many times so far. Each faction has their own set of special operations that they can do. So for the syndicate, they can do a rally option, they can march, they can construct, and they have terror. I think almost all factions have 4 operations they can do. And I think just about 99% of them usually have 4 operations that they can do. So rally, I'm just going to give you broad overstrokes of these. So rallying is basically bringing guys from your play area onto the map. Okay, so that's to kind of help you get guys from your available forces onto the map. Right, so that's obviously a good thing. March is basically moving units. So once they're on the map, you can then move them. Construct is usually allows you to build something, a base, or in this case for the syndicate, to place a casino. And then terror is an option to make it so that it's harder for different areas to become opposed or supportive because people are in terror. They're scared to do anything. If you look at the 26th of July, they have rally, again, bringing units on. March is usually moving units. Attack is attacking other units. And terror is making it harder for the government to get support. All right? So really good options because you're adding units to the map, you're moving them around, you're building things, you're, manipulating the map board by doing things. Then usually most factions have 3. Some factions might only have 2 or 4, but I would say 99% of them have 3 special activities. And those are going to be your special cool things that you can do to kind of manipulate the map or manipulate your opponents or manipulate what you can do really, really good. So profit is going to be able to stock cash, get money, get resources. Muscle is going to, position troops or police to protect your stuff. So you're basically telling the government to protect your casinos, right? Which is obviously very important for your victory condition. You want to get a whole bunch of casinos out. You want to get a whole bunch of money. So if the government's protecting your stuff, then you don't need to do that. That's really good. And then bribe is to neutralize or expose or hide units. So you have operations and you have special activities. And again, each faction has their own set. If we look at the 26th of July, they have some of them same, which are rally and march, which are bringing units on the map and moving them around. But they also have attack, right? Because they don't care. They don't have the casinos. They don't care about placing casinos. They want to eliminate the enemies. So they have attack, and then they have terror. Now their special activities is to infiltrate. So they are going to look at lead troops or police to defect. Oh, so they're going to take the government forces and change them over to their side. Oh, that sounds really good because the government is really against the 26th of July faction. Ambush, which is basically doing an attack that automatically succeeds because you ambushed them, right? So you don't need to... with attack, you have to actually roll a dice to see how much damage you do, and ambush is like automatically does damage. And kidnap, yeah, that's take money from syndicate or government, so that's how you get resources. So operations, special activities, really, really good. Your special activities. One other thing of note with these are, and I can't have it up when I show you this. You can see that the different operations are followed by, and it'll tell you what special activities you can do. So in this case, if you rally, you can do any of them. You can do a profit or muscle or bribe. With the march, you can do any of them. And with construct, you can do any of them. With terror, though, you can only bribe. So you can terror, and then you can bribe as well. So these two are kind of linked together. But all the other three, you can do any one of them. So you can't do like a terror and a muscle, or a terror and a profit. If we look at the July 26 faction, rally, they can only infiltrate. So if they rally, they can only infiltrate. If they march, they can only infiltrate. If they attack, they can only ambush. And if they cause terror, then the only thing they can do is kidnap. So some of these, I wish they had little lines that kind of, went to the different territories or the different special activities that link with them, just as a reminder, make it a little bit easier for some people. That would have been good, but I mean, it does say it on the card, but it's something that people forget because they'll be like, oh, I'm going to terror and then ambush. One other special note is you can actually do these in any order. So if you're going to march and then infiltrate, you can infiltrate and then march. So you can do them in any order. In fact, you can start marching, infiltrate, and then finish your march. So these special activities can happen before, during, or after you do your operations. And that is very important. There is like one little sentence in the rule book that says that, but it's ultra important. I wish they would like put that sentence in bold or make it its own paragraph or whatever, because it's like one of those unknown rules that most people don't know, is that you can actually do your special activity before, during, or after your operation. And I believe, now don't quote me on this, but I believe that goes for all of the coin games. So I would definitely look for that if you're looking through the rule book for your different coin game, but I believe that's true. So you can see these activities are going to be kind of your backbone to getting your job done, right? Putting units on the board, moving them around, getting rid of your opponent's pieces, adding bases, bribing opponents and changing them over to yours, kind of doing all those fun, great, cool, interesting things, right? So that is what an operation and a special activity is. So you get to do both of those things. So if the first player goes to the event, you basically get to take a full turn doing all your super cool stuff, which is pretty good. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't get the powerful event, and sometimes the event may or may not even help you. So doing all your super cool, powerful stuff is just as good, right? So let's look at option number 2. Option number 2 is the first player decides to do his operation with a special activity. So the first player says, I'm not going to do the event. I'm just going to take an op and a special activity. He gets to do all his fun operations and special activities and brings his guys on the map and moves them around or does whatever again, you only get to do one operation and one special activity. It's not like you get to do everything, but, let's say he decides to do a rally and a profit, right? Which is pretty good. He's going to bring guys on the map, and then he's going to get some money, which is not bad. Not bad at all. Or he might decide, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and construct, and I'm going to put a little bit of muscle out there. Or I'm going to march, and I'm going to bribe. So, doing your activity, your operation with your special activity, again, nothing wrong with that. Pretty powerful stuff. Might not be as powerful as the event, but still pretty powerful stuff. So if the first player goes there, then the second player obviously has a choice. He can only go here to pass, or he can go here. So what does this space do? This space will allow you to either do one of the events, or do the event if it only has one on there, or it'll allow you to do a limited op. A limited op. So what is a limited op, you might ask? So limited op means you can only do an operation, so you get no special activities. So you can't infiltrate, you can't ambush, you can't kidnap. You can only rally, you can only march, you can only attack, and you can only terror. But since it's a limited op, you can only do that in one space. One space and one space only. So if you were, say, to march, you could say, okay, I'm going to march here, and you would only be able to march units into that space. And that's it. You wouldn't be able to get to move any of your other units or anything. So you can see limited operations not nearly as good as a full operation. And with limited operations, you do not get a special activity. So if the first player goes here and takes his op with special activity, the second player has to decide, am I going to pass, or am I going to take a limited op, or am I going to take the event? So that's his three choices. So in this case, yellow, again, this is where the strategy and the matrix comes, is got to figure, okay, well, I don't really like the event because it doesn't really help me, because opening a casino for yellow player, it does nothing for him. Absolutely nothing for him. So he's not going to do the event. So he'd have to take a limited operation. If he takes a limited operation now, right? Or he can pass, which means he's got to think, okay, well, let me see. If I pass, then what's blue's going to do? Is he going to take a limited op, or is he going to pass? Oops, come on. Well, I think he might pass too. So what would the red player do? Well, red's definitely going to pass, because he's going to be first next card. Because it's kind of simple. It's kind of silly for him. To take a limited operation when he gets to go first and take this really good event on the next card. So he'll probably pass. So for the yellow player, he's got to think, if I pass, and the blue player, he's going to go after me on the next card, which means I might be second player next time. And if I'm second player next time, the red player will be the first player. I know that because green's already gone. So if I'm playing the yellow player, the Dictorios, I'm thinking all this in my head, right? I know green is already gone. He's already gone to this spot, which means he's in front of me on the next card, but he's X'd out because he'll be inactive for the next card. So I know red will go, but what's red going to do? Red's going to probably take the event. And if he takes the event, then I'm going to get to play an operation and a special activity, a full operation and my special activity. So I'm going to get to do all of this as opposed to going now and taking a limited operation. So all this is going through yellow's head, right? And he's thinking, okay, I'm going to pass. So now it's up to blue. Blue can become second player. So blue's thinking to himself, I'm second player, which means I could take the event And in this case, the event is Syndicate Resources -6, which is not a very good... I mean, it's not a huge, great event. I mean, you just knock the Syndicate down 6 points in resources. Not super great. I mean, it's nothing to write home about. But as blue player, I'm thinking, I can take a limited operation. I can do the event, or I can pass. And if I pass, I'm last on the next card, which means I'm getting screwed on this card, and more than likely I'm getting screwed on this card because I'm going to get second player. And he knows, blue player, right? Blue player knows that green is already gone and yellow is passed. And blue also knows that red is more than likely going to take this event because he sees he's going to be first. Pretty good event down here. So he's probably going to take the event. This player will be inactive, and then yellow will get to go. So blue won't even get a chance. So if blue passes, he's going to be screwed over on this card and not even get to activate. And so he will basically lose a turn if he passes. So blue player's kind of forced to do this. So he's going to have to take a limited operation or the event. And that's kind of, again, the thought process of what's going on. And you can see how just having these interesting card matrix with the events and this, I call the sequence of play matrix, where you kind of forcing your opponent to decide what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And, kind of manipulating it that way. So if blue passes, he's not going to get to go on the next card because red and yellow are both ahead of him, and he'll basically waste his turn, right? So he's going to basically be out of this card as well. So blue's kind of in a pickle, in a hard place. He's in a hard place because of the thought process that happened with green and yellow and red. And they basically kind of, each of the different players thought about what's my best move and how can I best do what's good for us while hurting my opponent. So he would take his limited up, or he'd do the event, because if he passes, that would just be dumb because he's not going to get to go on this card. So he's basically wasted a turn to pass. All right, so he's going to take his limited up. Now, let's scroll over and think about one more option. So we have this last option. This last option is op only, no special activity. So if the green player goes there, again, he is going to get an operation only. Not a limited operation. It is going to be an operation, which means if he decides to rally, it would cost him 1 resource per space. He could do it in 10 spaces if he wanted to. Or if he marched, it would cost him 1 resource per destination. Again, he could do it in 10 destinations. It's not a limited operation. It is an operation with no special activities. So big difference between those. So if he decides to do that, what does player number 2 get to do? Player number 2 only gets to do a limited operation. So why would you ever choose this, you might be thinking? Well, strategidity, my friends. Strategidity. You notice that here, somebody gets to play the event. Here, somebody gets to play the event. But on this line, nobody gets to play the event. So if the card comes up and it's got a really good ability for somebody else, and you don't want somebody else playing the event, you can go here and restrict it. Because if you're first player, you dictate what happens on the card. Super powerful ability to go first. Don't overlook it, my friends. Again, red player is going to be first player next time as long as he's eligible. No sense in red playing a limited operation on this card when he's going to be first player on next card and get to dictate what happens on this card. Being first player or being second player and having that player already go is super, super powerful because you know you're going to be number one because this player is already gone, right? So if green goes there because he doesn't want somebody to play an event, he doesn't want somebody to, oh my gosh, that would really hurt me. You know, it might say something like, remove 2 casinos from the map. That would be really bad to happen to green. So green might go, you know what? Nobody's going to get to play that. I'm going to get to do an operation, a full operation, again, which is going to be, well, let's look at green, right? A rally, 1 resource per space. So he could do it in 12 spaces. He could do it in every space he wanted as long as he had enough resources. March, he could march as many times as he wanted in as many spaces as he wants. So he gets a full operation. The only thing he doesn't get is a special activity. And it forces everyone else to either do a limited operation, which is a limited operation, again, is where you just get your operation, but just in one space. So if you do a rally, you can only do that in one space. If you march, you can only go to one space. If you attack, you can only attack one space. If you do terror, you can only do that in one space. So limited operation. So green is like, I don't want anyone to remove my pieces and I don't really want to play the event. And I should mention, if you play the event, nobody can play the other event. There's only a one-time use. You won't see where it says event and then play event again. So that's how the sequence of play matrix works. You're, like I said, first player, usually 50, 60, maybe 70% of the time, really good event. They're probably going to play that. The next player would get a full operation with special activity. That card is done because 2 players played on it. They would become ineligible, and then we would go to the next card and flip up the next card on the deck, which, let's do that and see what comes up. Flip that. Let's bring this down so we can kind of get an idea. All right, so those 2 players are inactive, and then these 2 players are active. Red's going to go first. He's going to remove a July 26 base remove a July 26 base from a province, or shift 2 provinces, 1 each level, towards active opposition. Remember, red player really likes opposition. So shifting 2 provinces, 1 level each, towards opposition sounds really good. So he would play the event, which means blue player, he could either A, take this option and that option only, or pass. So blue player's got to think, well, let me see. The next card, green will get to go first. I will get to go second again on this card. Oh, poor blue has been really kind of screwed out on this start of the game. So again, it's kind of silly for him to pass because he's not going to get a better option, right? He's not going to get a better option, so he'll probably do this. So we will do this event, and then blue would take his full operation and all of his special activities. Then yellow and green become active. For the next card, these 2 become inactive. This one would move over, and you would flip up the next card here. And let's do that and just slide it down here. Take a look. Oh, there's one for blue. There's a one for blue, for the government, right? So right now we're looking at green and blue, or green and yellow. So green can play the event. He could, look it over and see. Shift U.S. Alliance box 1 up, add 9 aid, then add the lesser of 9 or half aid rounded down to syndicate resources. So that would be a good way for him to get some resources. He can also shift the alliance U.S. Alliance one box down and leave the aid the same, which he probably wouldn't do. Is this a really good event for him? Depending on how low he was on resources. You know, right in the beginning of the game, he's got quite a bit of resources on here, so he wouldn't worry about it. But as he uses them, they go way down. And remember, one of the winning conditions for Green, the Syndicate, 7 casinos open and 30 resources. So gaining 9 resources would take him from 15 to 26. That's pretty good. He's not too far away. He just needs to get a bunch more casinos on. So resources are good. Maybe he would play the event. But he knows if he doesn't play the event, right? If he decides to pass, what's going to happen on the next card? Well, blue and red are going to become eligible. Blue's going to get first choice. He'll get to play the event and or dictate where things go. So green is kind of like, well, I got to do something because next card is not going to be as great for me. Not going to be as great for me. I'll be second player as opposed to first player. So again, he can go here if he doesn't want anybody to play any of the events. He can go here if he wants to do a full activity and special operations, or he can play the event, or he could pass, which I think would be dumb in this case because he's going to be second player next card. Obviously, you might want to pass to get the resources if you're really low on resources, but so in this case, if he's really low on resources, he should play the event and get like 9 resources, right? So he'd play the event. That means yellow can either pass, or you can play the event, or I'm sorry, you can play the operation and special activity. But what does he want to do? Let's look at the next card. The next card, he's going to go last. So if he passes, he's going last. Blue and red will come over and be active for that card. Blue will get to go before him. Red will get to go before him, which means yellow won't even get a turn. So passing, kind of dumb. He's probably going to do the operation and the special activity. So the cards and the events and the faction matrix and the sequence of play matrix kind of all work together with your factions, special operations, and special activities. Now, I know this episode's gone a little bit more, but this is kind of the heart of the coin system, kind of the backbone. 95% of the coin games use a very similar system. I know All Bridges Burning is slightly different in their matrix here, because I believe they only have 3 players as opposed to 4 players, so the matrix is slightly different if you have All Bridges Burning. And I think there might be one other one, but most of the games in the series have very similar-ish system. You'll find this sequence of play very similar throughout the coin system. So that's how things work. You're always going to see 2 in front and 2 in back. Or you're going to see the current card, you're going to see the next card. And then we talked about it, but we haven't actually seen it, but there is special cards that we're going to be shuffling into the deck. And I think we're going to talk about that in the next episode, kind of a wrap-up maybe game or video. Talk about the propaganda, talk about some of the special rules for the different systems. I'm trying to think of a few other things that I might have forgot about so far. But that's kind of the important thing is understanding what you can do and dictating what you can do and what your opponents can do. Very, very important. And also, it kind of gets into this system where you got green and yellow doing their thing, and then red and blue kind of doing their thing. And then, blue will do his thing, and then red will do this thing, and then these guys will come active, right? And it kind of does that a little bit until you get a dead event or something weird, or you have one of these scoring rounds, and then it's going to kind of reset everything, and everyone will then become active. And if everyone's active, obviously only 2 people are going to get to play. Oops. Flip. Oop. You just flip. There. So, yeah, I guess, understanding how this all... Really? Thanks. How this all operates, what the different cards, how they do things on the cards, and understanding, well, what should I do? Again, doing the event could be really good. Sometimes the events aren't even as good as doing a regular operation with special activities. So you got to think to yourself, well, I could take the event, but it's not really, I could do more, or I got more important things I need to do, maybe is a better way of saying it. I got more important things I need to do. The card might give you money, or it might give you removing enemies, or it might give you something that's really good, but maybe the situation is you need to get control of some areas. So maybe you need to take an operation, a special activity, to get your... if I'm playing the Syndicate, I got 6 bases out there, and the card doesn't give me an event to, and even if I'm first, and the card doesn't give me a chance to get that last base out, maybe I take an operation so I can get that last base out, So sometimes you might override the events, and even if they're good, just because you need to do more important things than what the event is. But like I said, don't overlook the fact that going first, super, super important, because you can dictate what your opponent has to do behind you, which might cause them to pass. Passing, to be honest, is kind of the only time a good pass is when you get a better result from the card that you're on with the next card. But you're basically passing. Passing is basically wasting your turn. Because, if you can see what happens, right? So you have green, and let's just say blue passes, and then it's yellow. And so those 2 would go over, and then the next turn it would be red and blue. And so blue gets to take their event, and then red, and then these guys come back, right? But if blue wouldn't have passed, right, blue would have been over here already. So he's kind of already behind where he could be by passing. Sometimes that's a good move. Most times it's not a good move unless you can really set yourself up for something better. So a lot of really good strategies, thinking, a lot of decisions that you have to make constantly about, so many tough decisions. Man, I could attack, but if I attack, then I don't get to bring more guys on the map. Or, I could rally and then infiltrate. Oh, that would be so good. But what I really need to do is march and then ambush. Oh, no. What I really need to do is terror and kidnap. Oh, there's so many things you want to do, but you just can't do them all. Oh, I really want to play this event, but oh no, I really want to rally too. And you just can't do everything. And not only that, but you only get to do it half the time because you're inactive for half the cards. Oh, it's so interesting when all these things happen. Anyways, we'll talk about some special cards. And you'll see that there's some special counters here. We'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about the propaganda, because there's a little bit more to it than what we've actually talked about. Even though there's very good stuff so far. I mean, really great, tough decisions. There's even more to think about when we'll talk about it in the next episode. So thanks for watching, guys. See you all next time.